Yes,
Well,
sir.
Yes, yes. I don't think I've talked to Coach Patterson since I graduated, and I probably, maybe a lot of the other guys, maybe see Marty at one of the reunions, but yeah, it's been a while.
Well, good. I'm glad that I could bring you guys together.
Definitely.
And I was in Peoria about 6 weeks ago, and going around town, people were telling me that they had seen the show and asking me about certain teams that they would like to see. And you guys came up quite a bit. So I had to do my due diligence and try to get you on here.
Awesome.
But this whole show was basically facilitated by two people. My buddy, Bob Manning, who was a 1983 graduate of Spalding, who pulled my coattail to you guys because I didn't know much about your history. And that's when I started to research you guys. And then the other person that that was getting on my case about bringing you guys on was Judge Stephen Curry. So here we are, and thanks to them for bringing us together. So good to see you all, and I hope that you're all well right now.
Yes, sir.
Good. Doing great.
Doing well.
Yep. Okay. So before we get into the 1969-1970 season, we got to go back. We got to take everybody even further back and let everyone know how you guys got into the game of basketball. Growing up in Peoria with, I know Shiley's from Metamora, but how'd you guys get involved in the game? Who put the ball in your crib? And tell us what it was like growing up in Peoria. I think all of you are from there, but I'll start first with Coach Patterson. Coach Patterson, please take us back and tell us how you grew up.
Well, I didn't grow up with Peoria. I came to Peoria in 1965. In 1961, when I came to Bradley University, but I'm very familiar with Peoria basketball.
Okay, so you grew up in Farmington, is that correct?
That's correct, right.
Okay, so how did you get involved in basketball? Did your dad teach you the game, or was there another relative? How'd you get started?
Well, Farmington's only a town of about 3,000 people, so athletics was quite important. My dad had been an athlete as a high school student, and yes, he influenced me a lot to participate in several sports, but basketball and baseball in particular. And I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to come to Bradley.
That's great. So when did you get the job? Well, wait a minute. Before you got the job at Spalding, tell us about some of the great teams that you were on at Bradley and some of the great players you played with.
Well, I was a little late. I believe your father went to Peoria University, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
A little late for him. My best experience was playing in the 1964 NIT championship in Madison Square Garden. These guys don't recognize, I think, the fact that Madison Square Garden was the mecca of basketball during those days.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the NIT was just as important, if not more important, than the NCAA. And so that was probably the biggest moment of my life. And most people don't realize at certain points in their life that something's going to be as important as it was. I think it's going to be to provide them with a lot of important points, but that was probably the biggest point in my life, coming up to the two state tournament championship teams.
So after you left Bradley, when did that Spalding job open up for you? Because I believe you were a pretty young man at
That
was your first job? Okay. Yeah. And what year did you join Spalding?
1965, the fall of 1965. Most of these guys, well, all of these guys except Ken was a senior. I was a freshman.
Okay. Well, next I got to go to Arthur Jenkins.
Oh,
Art Jenkins.
Thank you for taking me next. I got a great story to tell. So it all began for me in the parochial leagues. And I was talking to Ken this morning about the great coaches that we had. And I mentioned his coach, Willie Densberger. My coach was Mick Donahue. I know Jimmy Moore's coach was Tom Dunn. And I can't remember Marty's coach. What was your coach's name, Marty?
Well, we had a Father Horvath that coached most of the time.
That's what I thought, that it was a priest that coached. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it all began in the parochial leagues for all of us, probably. Now, you know, Rick, you went to a Catholic school in Metamora, didn't you?
Right. And yep. That's where I started in the parochial league and played against you jailbirds in the diocesan tournament.
I was thinking about that. So that was the beginning of it all. And Rick was the only one who wasn't in the Peoria parochial league, but all these other guys were. Rick's legend preceded him. I probably never told him that, but we heard about this guy, Rick Scheidley. You know, we heard about, you know, what a great ball player he was, and he was a good ball player. And we saw him the first time in the diocesan tournament. So I got a couple other quick stories to tell about my St. Boniface team. I went to St. Boniface. Again, my coach was Mick Donahue, a great guy. He molded my life, maybe it just as much as my parents did. But anyway, we had a good team. Skip Thorell was on our team, and he, you know, played for Spalding when we won the championship. We lost 5 games my 8th grade year. We lost to Marty's team 3 times, and we lost to Jimmy's team twice. And, you know, it was like serendipitous, honestly, that all of these good ball players were, you know, there were other good ball players too. Jim Bielenberg played with Marty. He was a great athlete. He ended up going where, to Central, Marty?
Correct. Yeah, you're right, Art.
And what was the left-hander's name on your team? Klein? What was his name?
Well, we had a guy named Pat Ozenbeck that was left-handed.
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, it began with an O. Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, so that's where it all began. And I used to lay in my bed when I was a kid. I got a portable radio, and I used to listen to the Bradley games. Mort Cantor was the announcer, and I'm sure all you guys remember him. And my parents didn't want me to be doing that, but I did do it. And I used to listen to Coach play at Bradley, you know, along with some of the other great Bradley players. And then I get to Spalding as a freshman, and he's the new coach. And I think what he said, I couldn't really hear him well, but he was our coach all 4 years. He moved up to the sophomore team when we were sophomores, then to the junior or the varsity, and when we were juniors and seniors. So we had him all 4. He was the only coach we ever had. So that's kind of how I got started.
But Art, you forgot to mention one thing about you playing at St. Boniface. What were your colors?
Red and I can't remember, red and white, weren't they? I don't remember.
Like
now.
red, white, and had kind of a blue trim.
Uh-huh.
And you guys started off the games when we were playing at Spalding with what tune? Played loud.
Sweet Georgia Brown.
Sweet Georgia Brown. And you guys would start off with the Globetrotter routine.
Our coach was he was like a fanatic. When we practiced, we would practice at our blacktop. We didn't have a gym. And if we screwed up, we had to do the 3-man weave up to Russell Field on the other side of the town as a punishment for doing that. But we had all these routines, and Jimmy's right. I know St. Pat's beat us twice, but they couldn't outdo us in the pregame warmups. I'll tell you that.
No, nobody could, because nobody had a pregame warm-up.
Okay, Curly, I'm finished.
Okay.
The roll down the back and then kick the ball to the next guy going in for the layup. They had the whole routine of the Globetrotters on Sundays on the big court, and everybody would come to see that routine. And it would scare the bejesus out of whoever they were playing, because it was like, what?
That sounds like the school I should have went to.
It was a great school, honestly.
All right, I'm going to take it over to Mr. Scheidley. Scheidley, take us back to the mean streets of Metamora. How did you grow up, man?
Well, I grew up in the Metamora, Germantown Hills area, always on a small farm outside of Metamora, and went to St. Mary's at Metamora, and that's how I started playing basketball. Just went out for the practice with the team when I had my opportunity on 4th or 5th grade, and just moved up from there. And like all the other guys, I had some really good coaches who taught me how to shoot and dribble and play the game of basketball. And from there, it just morphed into what Art just talked about. You know, I mean, the first time I went to the diocesan tournament, you know, and I saw all these guys, especially, I think it was St. Pat's, wasn't it, Jimmy? That's who you played for?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when I went in there and I saw Jimmy Moore and Skeets and Alvin O'Neill, and I thought, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to beat these guys? They're tall, they're fast, man.
And nobody ever did.
Nobody ever did either. That's right. So we gave them a good run in the diocesan tournament. I think I played in it 3 or 4 years in a row, and we got to 7th and 8th grade. I think we got to the quarterfinals. I don't know if we played you, Art, or not, but I remember your uniforms. You guys were style of Peoria, buddy. Let me tell you.
Except the pants were kind of short, right?
Yeah, we didn't have the big boxers that they have today, did they? You know, that used to be something when we got dressed. We were so poor at St. Mary's, everybody fought for the pants, you know, and if you ended up with the short shorts, I mean, it was like, I mean, teeny bopper pants.
You know, those are coming back in style now.
Are they really?
They really are. And then the ones that are not so long, the kids, or the athletes or whatever, they take them and they tuck them in their undershorts to bring them up higher. And they fold them at the waistband to get that look. So it came back. I never thought that it would, but it did.
All fashion comes around, right?
It does.
Well, look at McGann's letter jacket there.
Hold it up, Marty.
That is awesome.
That's a classic.
Awesome.
So, yeah,
so that's a good
how I kind
segue
of got
for
through all of it. Yeah,
that's a good segue for us to go into Marty. Please hold that jacket up one more time. If you can hold it up for about 20 seconds, I want to get a good look at that.
Got the Spalding State Chapter runner-ups.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's in good condition.
Yes, it is.
My mom put it away and wouldn't let me wear it for the last 15 years.
and now you can't wear it.
Only gets around me halfway, Rick.
Well, Marty McGann, please take us back. Tell us who put the ball in your crib and got you involved in basketball. I know you were a great football player, but we talking about basketball now. So take us back.
Very proud of that basketball. I started at a young age. My dad was loved athletics and got me involved in just about anything and everything, although there weren't nearly as many sports then as there is today. I started out, I followed Spalding since I was probably old enough to run. I had an uncle who was an all-state basketball player for Spalding in 1958 when they finished 3rd in the state. So I started following his career. And then as far as me as a young man, I started back in Peoria. They had what they called biddy basketball down at the old Salvation Army down on Jefferson Street. And it was run by a gentleman named Paul Rutherford, who probably knew every kid that was growing up in Peoria at that time. I played for Paul for 5 years. We were fortunate enough, I think in about 6th grade, we went out to a tournament in Wichita, Kansas, and we won that tournament. So then we took the train out to New York City, and here as a 12-year-old kid was playing basketball in New York City. I think we won the consolation bracket or something at that point, but it was quite a thrill at that young age to be taught by, first of all, a real gentleman in Paul Rutherford, and taught me a lot about the game of basketball, which, I had a lot to learn, but it wasn't from not a love of the game, because I've loved basketball ever since I was able to bounce the ball. So then we got into the grade school, and the guys have done a pretty good job of zeroing in on our grade school. We all competed against each other. The Catholic League grade school had quite a showing down at Spalding, played every Saturday and Sunday. We all played against each other. The only thing, I can't add anything to shooting baskets in the parking lot or running to Russell Field. I will say this. We had a
gym, that's why.
We had a home court advantage. We did have a gymnasium, but they would not allow us to turn the heat on. So we practiced in long pants and jackets. And so whenever a team would come in, when you talk about a home court advantage, we had quite a home court advantage, because the other team, they didn't even want to take off their warm-up. So that was one of the advantages of being at St. Philomena's. But love basketball. I think the thrill, and I'll let all these other guys get together. When I got down to Spalding, I came from a grade school where only about 3 or 4 kids went to Spalding. Everybody else went to our arch rival. But joined in, and I saw all these players that I'd played against all throughout grade school. And I saw Art and Skip and of course Jimmy and Alvin and Skeet and and wondered quite honestly how I was ever going to make the team, because we had quite an array of tremendous young basketball players, in the 8th grade coming into freshman year. So that's kind of how I got started with basketball. And then, Ron Patterson took over from there. And like I say, playing for Coach for 4 years, he meshed quite a team together and was, in my opinion, took like a jigsaw puzzle and made all the pieces fit together. And it took us 4 years to finally get it down, but I think we got it down pretty well. So Curly,
Yeah.
that's kind of my background that got me to Spalding anyway.
That is cool, man. Great story.
Definitely. Awesome story.
I got to take it over to Big Ken Wolbeck. How you doing, Ken?
Doing good, Curly.
Take us back, my man.
Well, yeah, mine is maybe a little bit different. Neither my mother or father were basketball junkies by any stretch of the imagination, but I was an only child, and I had to find something to do by myself. So I spent my time shooting baskets. There was a couple of hoops in the neighborhood not too far from our house, and that's where I spent most of my days because I didn't have anything else to do, quite frankly. And from there, when I got into grade school and started to play at St. Cecilia, got a lot of pressure to play basketball because I was tall. And I was very fortunate to have a coach, Willie Densberger, who really took a liking to me and helped me tremendously because, like I said, my parents had no clue what to do, what it was about, anything. And as my dad got sick later in my grade school life and then eventually passed away at the end of my freshman year, I had to rely tremendously on him. And then really almost had what I consider to be 2 stepfathers. And Willie was one of them when I was young, and Ron Patterson was the other one when I was in high school. They really looked after me, and I was always afraid if I did anything wrong that Ron would kick my ass. So I had to keep the straight and narrow and keep it together. And so from there, everything, just a lot of luck and good fortune. And here we are today.
Did St. Cecilia have a basketball gym? Did they have a gym?
No, they didn't even have a gym. We had to go over to Laux and practice. And for those of you who've ever been in old Laux gym, the top of the free throw circles meet at half court.
Absolutely.
That's where we practiced.
That gym may be smaller than St. Mark's. Laux.
Oh, it is definitely smaller. Yeah, you can't make it smaller unless it's half court.
Yes. So next we got to go to Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, please take us back. Tell us who put the ball in your crib growing up, how you obtained a love for the game. I know you're a multi-sport athlete, but please take us back.
Well, my story is it's really kind of strange because basketball didn't come to me until I was in the 5th grade. And I was a transfer student from Lincoln Grade School to Webster Grade School. And to meet new people, they played, before the entry bell rang out there on the playground. And it was a young lady, Rita Horn. She could shoot a jump shot in 5th grade. She played with the guys and would rebound. You had to play aggressively to compete with this young lady. Mm-hmm. And 5th grade was, it was traumatic in having to move. And this would have been my 3rd school. But playing basketball became kind of that outlet where you meet people on the playground. You got to know people. You got to play hard. And again, Rita Horn, she was knocking you around. You had to play some basketball just to be on the court with her. Then 5th grade, we had a guy named Axelrod that wanted to start playing basketball. That's when I met Alvin O'Neill. Alvin and I played basketball from 5th grade on. Alvin was the only person that could shoot a free throw without doing that underhand basket move. We could not even hit the rim. Alvin could hit 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 on a consistent basis. And so the coach, instead of having him shoot that underhand scoop, he did it that way. He allowed him to go ahead on and shoot his shot. But playing basketball was something to do. There weren't that many sports. I played baseball for Little League for Ed Porky Brooks. You guys probably heard of him. He coached basketball down there at Woodruff. But I learned how to play sports by playing baseball. And originally that was my first love, was playing baseball. Basketball comes and you were doing running, shooting, jumping, banging, getting knocked down. And after the 6th grade year, we were getting ready to transfer and go to St. Patrick's. St. Patrick's is, we weren't there for the entire time. 7th grade year was when we started at St. Patrick's. But in my neighborhood, on the basketball court, we had Eric Turner. Many of you guys may have known Eric Turner. He was city councilman in Peoria. He could do a dribble behind the back, fade away, jump shot, and hit it. Dribble between the legs, this crossover stuff that people are talking about, you know, he was doing that when he was at St. Patrick's, and he would do that dribble behind the back, through the legs, from Warner Homes all the way to Carver Center.
See, there were other eccentrics, Marty.
and not miss a step. And then on the playground, we only had one playground like that, that had a basketball court in Warner Homes. And it was situated in between what we called the white court and the colored court. But wow, it only had one hoop. And so if you were going to play, that's where you played basketball. And Eric Turner and the guys that were at Roosevelt, Eric was at St. Patrick's, but guys from Roosevelt would be there playing. And so, you know, that's how you played. And it was a whole different kind of a game, playing basketball, where you had to pretty much earn your way onto the court, because you had to be respected enough to be able to call a game. And you say my next, that meant that you had to be able to stand up to my next, because you had to pick a team. And if you played until you got beat, you stayed on the court until you got beat, or you quit. Well, 7th grade year, we started at St. Patrick's. And again, it was one of those things, I don't know where they got that basketball hoop from. It looked like somebody took some angle iron and welded a hoop onto it and stuck it out there on the playground. Old rusty thing. But, you know, playing basketball was one of those things. I didn't know they had a basketball team, but they had a gym. And the next thing you know, Tom Dunn, he's doing basketball, and a bunch of kids say, well, why don't you go out for the basketball team? Well, we went out for the basketball team, and then, here's Alvin and me, and then, we're playing basketball. We weren't that bad. I can definitely tell you, playing against St. Philomena and Marty and Bielenberg, that was a chore, because Bielenberg was a strong dude.
He was a horse.
And Marty was, he was well known from Biddy basketball. You just couldn't let him be alone. He'd hit that set shot on you. Plus, he was a good ball handler. But, we found that we could play basketball and play basketball pretty well. And being down there at Spalding was a real big deal. I mean, you play Saturday, or you got the big court if you were playing Sunday, and you got to play against a lot of different people. And Tom Dunn coached us through the diocesan championship. Still didn't quite figure out what that meant. I mean, we knew we won a lot of games, and we knew we got the big trophy and all of that. But then 8th grade, it was pretty much the same. And, we're playing against, the guys in the league, St. Boniface with Artie and Skip. And you had another guy who was the big forward, ended up playing tackle in football for us down at Spalding.
Brophy? No, Kenny Barron's maybe?
Kenny Barron's, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And I was always down under with Kenny Barron's, and I could not move that guy for nothing. He was worse than Bielenberg. Bielenberg was a rough dude, but Kenny Barron's, I mean, you just weren't going to move him.
He was a moose.
Yeah. And if he got the ball down low, you weren't going to stop him unless you could pin it to the backboard. You know, it was one of those kind of things. But basketball kind of became, it was just fun. I mean, look forward to playing on Saturdays or Sundays. And then, you know, being able to see these guys down at Carver Center, you know, that was the thing. I mean, that was the State Park or Carver Center. During the summer, it was State Park. During the winter, it was down at Carver Center. And the difference was you got to play against all the public school kids down at State Park and Carver Center. Well, going to Spalding, that became the challenge, because it was like, okay, you know, you guys in the Catholic school think that you're better than us, you know, and they're going to put a whoop down on us on the basketball court, football court, in track, or whatever. So the competition was always pretty heavy. And I enjoyed, I must admit, I enjoyed beating these guys that were in my neighborhood that would, you know, you had to play them down at Carver Center, you had to play them at State Park, but getting on the big court with a crowd and outplaying them was a real big deal. And I can tell you, meeting Coach Patterson with basketball, he changed the nature of how we played. I mean, I was always aggressive, and I didn't mind being aggressive. I didn't mind getting, you know, in the thick of it. But he taught us the techniques that would allow us to do something different. You know, Spalding, I think, was known for playing a good game, but they weren't always winning. And what Coach Patterson did was, you're not just going to play a good game, but you're going to win it and you're going to take it all. That was a whole different kind of concept that I saw from what I knew about Spalding basketball. I'd watched Spalding basketball when I was in 7th and 8th grade, and they played a good game, but they weren't out there to win it all. I mean, that was just an impression. And then you get Coach Patterson, who comes along, takes this group of freshmen from every part of the city, South Side, North Side. You know, we had a lot of Catholic schools then, which are no longer in service, but molds that into a team that nobody expected to see anything like that from Spalding. You know, really? Manual was a good competition, and Central was a good competition. Woodruff had firepower, but they did not expect to see anything like that with Spalding. And Coach Patterson turns all of that upside down. Sophomore
it looks
year,
like, from what I'm hearing, the consensus is that Coach Patterson changed the culture of Spalding basketball. And with that being said,
I got one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is the other part of what he did in terms of changing the culture. It wasn't just about playing a good game and winning, but if you were able to stay on the team, there was a place for you. And he took parts that were, I mean, I was not a dribbler. I was not a shooter. I could hustle. I could, you know, run up and down the court. I could do something. And what he did was he took everybody's skill and that skill set and used it so that we could win. So when he put you in, this is what I want you to do. This is your job for this entire time that you're in. If we were in man-to-man, which is the other thing, we got out of zone, went to man-to-man, we pressed the whole damn game. And they'll tell you that when we started playing man-to-man, I mean, all of that was a new dynamic for Catholic school, especially Spalding. I mean, they were stand and shoot and control the ball. And then all of a sudden we get Coach Patterson, and he is saying, not only are we going to shoot the ball, but we are going to defense everybody. We're going to shut them down.
Amen, Jimmy.
Yeah, and that's what he brought to it, which changed the dynamic. I think, you know, taking people that had those skill sets, and this is how we're going to use it. and we're going to win with it.
And you did.
And we did.
Yes, we did.
Well, I got to go to Coach Patterson. All right, you've got the summer of 1968. You have the job, and you know that you've got these good players, the ones that are on this call, that are going to be on campus, and you got this season coming up. Please tell us about some of the other players that were on the team that are not on this call. Please tell me about them. And you had to feel good that maybe we got something going. We might be able to make a run.
Well, the first year, 68, 69, I finished about 500. And we finally wound up losing to Peoria High School in the semifinal, I believe, of the regional tournament, which was played at the field house. So it was a good experience for us playing at the field house. And I think at that point, that was my first year as the head coach, and I think we were able to instill what Kenny was talking about as far as what we wanted to accomplish on the court in terms of playing tough defense, handling and controlling the basketball. And I think probably what separated us from some of the other schools, we tried to take advantage of what we could do, like Jim said, as well as we had some guys that helped us out, scouting teams. We tried to identify what the strengths and the weaknesses of the people that we were playing and take advantage of that by overplaying certain people's strengths. And that's what separated us from the other teams. And we didn't win many games by a lot of points, but we were always there. And with the type of kids we had, these guys, they were able to pull out a lot of games at the end by making free throws in clutch situations and handling the ball when they had to. I'm not a proponent. I know they're talking nowadays about trying to have a shot clock in high school basketball. And I know fans think that's a great thing because there's going to be a lot of scoring. And quite frankly, I would be opposed to that because I think you're not able to recruit in high school. You can't dictate what skilled players are going to come to your school. Some years you're going to have size, some years you're not. And I think it's an advantage for some schools at times to be able to hold the ball. And that can be exciting. And so I guess that's the difference that we tried to initiate that first year. Then when these guys were seniors, and except for Ken, I'm kind of disappointed to have to tell you that the Chicago Sun-Times had us seated or ranked as number 1 in the state at the beginning of the year.
Really?
It shocked a lot of people.
Wow.
And I think it shocked us too. I don't think we thought we were that good. And we went down to Manual about the 15th of the season, and we proved to everybody we weren't that good. Minnesota was about a 20-point loss.
22 points, I think.
From that point on, I think from that point on, we decided we better put it into a different gear, and we did. We had some close games along the way, but as I said, as Jim responded to in his discussion there, I think we realized that we were able to play with just about anybody. And as long as we got to the last 2 or 3 minutes of the ball game, we felt confident that we were going to be able to pull it out. And we did. Now, some of the guys that aren't there, I think when we were talking, you and I were talking a couple of days ago, I mentioned guys like Skip Burrell. I'm disappointed that we weren't able, I don't know if anybody knows where Skip is. I think the last time, I think, Marty, you were saying that you thought he was either in the state of Washington or in California. Art, do you know where he is?
Yeah, I believe he's in Washington State, Coach. But Yeah, I'm disappointed too. And, you know, when Curly Boo asked me last night, I started scratching my head to think, how can I get a hold of him? Because he and I grew up, you know, a block apart. And, you know, we probably weren't the best of friends in grade school, but obviously by senior year, we were, you know, real buddies, right? And, but something happened along the way. I don't know. I sort of like tend to black out the bad stuff that happens in my life. So I don't know if I had an altercation or a blow up with him or what it was, but we grew apart, and I don't know where he's at now at all. I have an ID he's in Washington State, but I'm not sure.
For example, in my opinion, was probably as good a player as there was in the conference outside of Alvin. I don't think anybody was as good as Alvin. Skip turned into an excellent basketball player, and by the time the season was near its end, he was somebody you could count on for 10 or 12, 15 points, and sometimes he went off even higher than that.
Definitely.
He helped us out in a lot of situations, but we just had people that were, as Jim suggested, had certain skills, and when we needed a certain skill, then they were in the game, and they knew what they had to do, and for the most part, they did it.
Well, I see.
Ken and I were talking about that today, Coach, about, you know, people playing roles. And I said to him, you know, when you're winning, you want to play a role. And he said, no, when you're winning, it makes it easier to accept your role. And I think, you know, he hit it on the head, right, Ken? Is that what you told me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Winning solves a lot of other issues.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, I know Ken was a tremendous player, and he wanted to be on the court all the time. And, you know, Skip was also, as you said, a great ball player. And so Ken had to take a back seat sometimes. But I mean, personally, I don't think we would have won it. We certainly wouldn't have won it all without Al, or we wouldn't have won like we did without Alvin. I mean, there's no question he was head and shoulders above everybody. But Ken was also an extremely important person. I can, you know, think of more than one game where he came off the bench, and I was telling him today, he was a freak. How many 6'7" guys can shoot the way he could? You know, Rick was talking about that. You know, how many points would he have scored if there was a 3-point line? I mean, so, you know, I agree with what Jimmy said and what Coach just said is, you know, you gotta play roles. You gotta have a role, right? And would I have liked to take a few more shots? Sure, Marty, but I think I averaged 3 shots a game. I was looking at those stats. Did anybody else see the stats I put up there on the Facebook page? Did you see them, Curly?
I did not.
There's a page of all the stats at the end of the year, and I heard from Mark Kleeman recently, and I think he was the statistician, he told me. And I got to call him when we're done here, because he's only got me down for 85 assists. Now, I led the team in assists, but over 30 games, I only had 85 assists. Come on. I mean, something's wrong there, Coach. I don't know what it was, but.
Hey, Art, if you average 3 shots a game, that's twice as many as I took. Don't be kidding me.
Well, you out-rebounded me, though, by a long shot. So.
You know, Curly, I think one of the things that really made this team gel was in all the years, the 4 years I played with Coach Patterson and pretty much the same group of guys, was I never once saw confrontation amongst any of the players. We just gelled so well together. You know, we all started at one time. We all subbed at one time. And I mean, it was just a really good group of people, players that came together and just really played together well. And I think by the end of our sophomore year, you know, Alvin had moved up, and I think we were 18-3 or 22-3. We didn't lose many games our sophomore year. We didn't have Alvin. And I think that's when everybody realized we got something special here.
Sure, I agree.
Awesome. Well, I see that you guys went 20-3 in the regular season, and only losing to Manual, the game that Coach mentioned. You lost to East Peoria, and you lost to Centralia at Centralia, I believe, which
right.
is Death Valley for a lot of teams.
Exactly.
At Centralia, but
Yeah,
you
they
later.
Oh.
You later paid back Manual, and you paid back East Peoria, and you get to the regionals, and here comes Chillicothe IVC and you smacked them in the mouth 79-44. And then here comes Woodruff close by. You beat them by 11. And then here comes Manuel, who gave you your first loss, and you put the hurting on them, beating them. Let's see here, 92-73. As O'Neill dropped 43 on Manuel. 43. And then Skip added 23 for good measure.
I remember he had a great game that game.
And then Skeets added 12. You get to the sectionals, and a school I've never heard of. I'm well versed on Illinois basketball. San Jose
San Joe's
came all the way from California.
I thought they were in California
to get beat 75-60. And O'Neill bust 25, and Ken added 13, and Skeets 12. You get to the sectional title game, and here comes Manitou Foreman, and you gave them a beating 84-59 as O'Neill scored 27, Skeets 17, and Ken, you dropped 15. But here comes Lincoln with the great Seymour Reed.
Yeah, he went to Bradley.
The super sectional in the field house. So I'm going to stop right there, and you guys fill in the blanks of what happened in that super sectional at Robinson Memorial Fieldhouse in front of 7,300. Please go ahead, fellas.
We had enough grudge matches to get us ready. And I think the big thing for me was always expecting to be out there and playing the entire game. There was no break period. I mean, if you came off the bench, you were expected to hit the ground running, literally, but to be playing your best game. And all of those teams, I think, were expected to beat us. I mean, this is Spalding Institute. It only has, 150 seniors. These teams were expected to beat us. And I think what Coach did to motivate us to not only play together, but to play to win. Not just play a good game, but to play to win. It was something that I think was really important. And then being in the field house, I mean, that was just an awesome stage. That elevated floor, that was the first time I ever dunked.
But was the super sectional the only time we played, or where? Because Curly Boo was telling me he thought the sectional was at the field house too.
It was, Art. I was going to say, I think one of the advantages for us, was, first of all, we played a couple games there when we were juniors because the regional was at the field house. And as we all remember, the field house was, almost unexplainable how wonderful it was. And it was a court when they turned those lights off and, they only had the lights over the court. That was a dynamic moment. And then we won our two sectional games at the field house. And then by the time we played Lincoln, and that was a war, they were exceptionally good. Obviously,
they were favored.
Pretty good.
They were. That's what people forget about, right, Ken? They were big.
Yeah, they're good.
We had played at least we had played up on the raised court.
Yeah.
And I think that was a bit, I don't know if it's an advantage, but it took some of the nervousness out.
Sure.
I think in the fact that we had played there. So
yeah, because that would have been Lincoln's first game there, right?
Right.
Well, Jimmy was talking about being favored. I read that Lincoln was actually favored in that game, but I never felt like an underdog going into that game. I mean, the only time I felt like an underdog was when we lost to Proviso East, honestly. I mean, Manuel gave us tough games and we barely beat them the second time we played them, but I felt confident going into the super sectional myself. I mean, when you got Alvin O'Neill on your team, I think you almost always have the advantage, in my opinion. So, but I did read that Lincoln was favored in that game.
And that game was
that particular game, Art. I know that Wolbeck came off the bench and contributed early, from what I've been told.
He did.
To keep you guys ahead of them.
That's what I was alluding to, that he was popping 25 footers from the corner in that game. I remember that. And I think he scored 10 points in that game. Didn't you, Ken? And I think Alvin had 23 or so. We only scored 47 points.
I was going to say, that was a pretty low scoring game.
Yeah, right. 40. That was that might have been our lowest scoring game. Even Proviso was higher scoring than that. I think it was our lowest scoring.
Yeah, I saw that you guys averaged 75 points a game.
That's
that
pretty
year.
good.
That's a lot for a high school basketball
And
game.
especially in that day and age, you know?
I'd like to second what Art just said, though, Curly, and the fact that I never felt that we were the underdog. I mean, I guess because you didn't read the paper or whatever. One thing, again, I go back to Coach Patterson, at least in my mind, is that he was such a teacher of the game. And when you went in to play a team, you know, you felt like if you did what he told you to do, you would win that game.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
One guy favored to the left, and one guy couldn't dribble. One guy was a jump shooter, whatever. And there was something about it when you left the huddle and went out on the court. At least I always felt if we performed the job the way we had been taught, and that we were going to win. And you know, I don't think we were cocky by any means, but I never felt that we were the underdog when we played these teams, because there was just something about them that, you know, I felt that we knew them well enough that we knew their weaknesses, we knew their strengths, and pretty much we knew what we had to do to win. Now, you know, now it's up to us to do it, but I felt very confident, and I think a lot of it goes back to the coaching, in the fact that I always felt that if we did the way we were instructed, that we would come out on top.
You know, Marty, I used to think about, you know, if the games actually were played by the coaches, you know, the coaches, these guys on the bench with the suit and ties, if they had to suit up, I think we probably would have been undefeated, because we had some great athletes on the coaching staff, right? I mean, obviously Coach Patterson played for Bradley, and Ron Dwyer was a great athlete, and Ed Bradle was a hell of a basketball player. So I think we could have held our own against anybody if it had been the coaches playing each other.
Yeah, that Lincoln game was close all the way through. I mean, it was 2, 3, 4 points. I remember that. And I got in at the end of the game, and Seymour Reed was shooting a free throw. And my job, of course, was to box him out, which I did. and it came long. I don't know if you guys remember this or not. It came long, and I got the rebound and there was only about 3 seconds left in the game. We had it won. And I got the rebound and took about 3 steps or 4 dribbles to the right, and I flung it down the other end and went right through, swish. But they only gave me 2 points for it.
Hey, does anybody know if those games were televised, the super sectionals?
Mark Kleeman would know.
I asked him, and I know he was involved with the IHSA, and he gave me some guy's name that was still with the IHSA, but I never got a hold of him. But I mean, certainly they would televise Bradley games in the field house, wouldn't they?
Right.
So they must have had the facilities to do it, but I don't know if I'd love to see that game. And then next year too, that was a heck of a game too, that you guys, when Kenny was a senior.
Yeah, but you know, before we get into that, Art, you're being a little bit modest. When the game got down to the nitty gritty, they put you on the line in front of 7,300, and you cashed 4 free throws to leave no doubt that you guys were going to state.
I did. You know, I was telling somebody, I still look back at what happened in that game as one of the defining moments of my life. You know,
really?
Because if I hadn't made those free throws, we might have lost the game. I mean, we were still ahead when I went to the line, honestly, by 2 points each time. But, you know, that was such a great time for our school. I mean, you guys all remember how crazy it was with, what was that little guy, Meismer, or what was his name?
Kevin Meismer.
Kevin Meismer. And he was, I don't know, like selling pieces of the broken backboard. Did you break the backboard, Ken?
Yeah, I did.
Tore it down.
All right, so you know, tell Curly Boo about that. But anyway, so yeah, it was. I was lucky, Curly Boo, because I was being pressed, and I think maybe Marty took the ball out of bounds and threw it to me, and there I was in the corner, and I could just remember thinking, you know, this is no time to be timid. You better, you know, go. And so I did, and we were stalling. We were trying to run down the clock, and they fouled me with like 50 seconds left. And Lincoln wanted to freeze me, so they called a timeout, and we went out of the huddle. And honestly, the first shot I took, I was thinking, well, just do your form, you know, keep your form. But I really couldn't even feel my legs and my arms. I don't know how the first one even went in, to be honest with you. But once I got that one down, then I felt pretty confident that I could do it. I was telling somebody I calibrated my rangefinder, you know, and but the first one, I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you, but I'm so happy that I did, because you know, it's not going to ruin your life, but I would still think about, you know, I didn't come through and, you know, we didn't go to the state tournament. So I got lucky and you know, did it. But yeah,
It
that was a
luck.
big moment in my life.
It wasn't luck. Only a fool looks at the skills of a wise man and calls it luck.
It wasn't luck because St. Boniface shot more free throws. Half their points scored in a game were free throws.
We did practice that a lot. And, you know, Skip, Coach was talking about what a great player Skip was. If you look at those, have any of you guys looked at those photos that I put up last night on the Curly Boo site? I found the statistical sheet, you know, and Skip was our leading free throw shooter. He shot 80% from the free throw line. So yeah, we did practice that. And you know what? Any way you can contribute to help the team, right? You got to do it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, before we get into going to state, I gotta go up to Ken. Ken, you breaking backboards? You doing the Daryl Dawkins?
No, I just couldn't jump.
You did dunk it. You just tore it down
in 1969.
Yeah, no, I know. It's crazy.
Please tell us about it.
Oh, we were just messing around. I think it was probably just warming up before practice, and
okay.
Went in and tried to dunk one, and I took off too soon, and I caught the ball right on the front of the rim. That's before breakaway rims.
Right.
And there was enough force, and I think probably the backboard was old. You know, we were poor Catholics. We couldn't really knew.
Yes, we were.
And it popped. It shot glass all the way to half court.
I was standing at the free throw line.
Any of that glass to this day? Because usually when somebody breaks a backboard, they always take some home as a souvenir.
You know, Curly, I did. I had a piece of it for many, many years, and through all of our moves around the world, somewhere I lost it.
Oh, wow.
Well, I was saying, Curly Boo, that this kid in our class that week, between Tuesday when we won the super sectional and we went to Champaign on Friday to play, it was a Kevin Meismer, Jimmy?
Yeah. Kevin the Rat.
The Rat, they called him, Kevin Meismer, a little guy wasn't he from Metamora, Rick?
Yeah, he was from Metamora. I went to school with him.
He was a character, but he had like a fundraising thing, I recall, didn't he? Where he sold pieces of the backboard. I seem to remember that he did that, but it was great.
Yeah, he sold pieces of the glass art. He put them in little bitty packages.
That's right.
And the story I heard, he sold, I don't know, like 200 of them for like $5 or $2 a piece or something, and got the Glee Club clear out of debt.
Wow.
You guys remember Brother Orban?
Brother Orban.
Remember Brother Orban?
You can't forget that guy.
Okay, so after I break the board, like the next day, he sees me in the hallway and he goes, "You're just lucky we're not making you pay for that." and I said to him, I says, "You're damn lucky I didn't get hurt or you'd be sued."
Then he said, "Give me your card. I'm going to mark your card."
Exactly. Clean toilets on Saturday morning, buddy.
Scrubbing those floors.
Well, look here, fellas. You're going to state. You traditionally, that super sectional game is on a Tuesday. So you have Wednesday and Thursday to prepare for your Friday game down at Assembly Hall in Champaign. So what was it like going back to school? I know you had a pep rally, a good send-off. What was it like going back to school, being even bigger man on campus? What was it like?
For me, it was no real big deal because, you know, we had Brother Orban. We had Father T to deal with, and we had Father Noonan to deal with. It was another day, you know.
Really?
It was for me. It was. I was worried about making sure that I got everything right because, as I told you in that one conversation, Curly, I can remember not that year, but I was not going to screw up the grades because Coach Patterson was knee deep in my. Because I got I think I got a 6-week final grade of a D in English, and he was ripping me a new one. So
I tell you, there were some real badass English teachers down there at that school.
It was on, and so for me, it was like, no, this is just another day. I have got to get this work done, you know, and when you're talking, what would Father Teague's work? I mean, his final exams were what? 3 problems, you know? So if you got 2 of them right, you passed.
You got 100%, I think, if you got 2 right, didn't you?
You know, with him. But no, for me, it was just the excitement, I think, was there. But being in the neighborhood that I was in.
It was another day. I mean, you know, it reminded me, it wasn't that much different than when I was at Notre Dame. I mean, you're there to go to school. You're not there to play sports.
I don't think everybody was on that same page, Kenny. I don't think I was on that page. I don't think I did anything my senior year really to accomplish much scholastically. But for me, it was just like you described, Curly Boo. I mean, it was, you know, it was euphoric, honestly. That's how I felt around there. And, you know, you've got this anticipation of going to another city and these, you know, kids staying in hotels. And you know, Skip and I shared a room, and all of my buddies, even from St. Boniface that weren't even going to Spalding anymore, some of them slept in my bathtub, you know? So there's this anticipation of, you know, what do you think, Marty?
I'm with you, Art. I thought there was a tremendous anticipation as far as I can remember even walking to the different classes and having guys start cheers as we were in the hallway, and, you know, the faculty was behind us. And I thought the whole, in my mind, I'm going to say I was playing, and it sounds corny, but for the school, for Spalding. I mean, for our classmates, for the ladies over at the Academy of Our Lady. I mean, they followed us tremendously. I remember home games at the end of the season when we beat East Peoria and stuff, where there was like everybody but like 10 kids in our class went to those games. And I just thought, they had the lottery for who would get tickets to go to the games, and they were lining up, buses. I'm glad we had a bus to take down there, but I thought that those couple of days leading up to that were something that you'd never forget. And like I say, I just think the school, we were known as a football school, and all of a sudden here's our basketball program really excelling, and I just thought that it was something that I wouldn't forget. But again, I won't say that I didn't play for my yourself and for your teammates, because obviously we've put in a lot of hours of sweat and blood. Sure. But I feel that I played a lot for the school, for the name Spalding and the academy, and for I just keep saying my classmates, whether the guys that you played football with or whatever. I mean, there could only be 10 of us on that bench, but I thought, I just felt, as you say, kind of euphoric, thinking, here we go, we're going to Champaign. Kind of a childhood dream.
It is a dream. I mean, it is a dream.
And I might add to people who are watching, this is not a 2-class system. This is not a 4-class system. One champion, winner takes all.
No school size, categories, right?
Didn't matter.
Everybody's in the same category.
School had 50 kids or 5,000. Yeah. It was one champion. So with that being said, when you guys you got a Friday quarterfinal game. Did you guys go down early and stay in a hotel, or did you commute back and forth?
Well, we did stay in a hotel Saturday night, I think, but I can't remember about Thursday or Friday night. I mean,
I think we went down, Art, because you and I went to a dinner.
That's right, on Thursday, didn't we?
On Thursday night. So
that's right.
I don't remember what time of day we went, but I'm quite sure we went down on Thursday night. Boo.
That's right, we did. Okay. Yeah, Marty and I went to the governor's banquet.
Who were your roommates? And Coach Patterson, did you have to put a curfew on them? Did you have to watch them when they were down in Champaign?
I'm thinking me and Rick were together. Rick Shidley and I.
Yeah, we were.
I wasn't it the 4 of us, Rick and Jimmy?
Yeah. I mean, I was nervous. I must have checked my bag about 4 or 5 times to make sure I had everything packed and all that I needed, man. I mean, I was like a cat on a tin roof there. I said, boy, what if I get down there and I forget this and that and that? I mean, man, what am I going to do?
So did we take a bus, all of us, on Thursday night then? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, because I don't remember any different.
What do you remember, Coach?
Oh, go ahead, Coach. What do you remember?
I think he's muted, maybe.
We stayed over on Thursday night down in Champaign. Then we played
Belleville East, I think,
Right.
wasn't it?
Yep.
Yes, Belleville East.
Can't you turn his volume up, Curly?
Unfortunately, he's on my cell phone.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I have it as close to the
Okay.
speaker as I can and as loud as I can. Go ahead, Coach.
No, I'm just saying, we lucked out in the draw by four of the best teams. I don't know what we were seeded or if they did seed, but four of the best teams in the tournament were all in the bracket. We were playing Belleville, and I think Aurora East we played in the semifinals, and they may have been the top four, I'm not sure. But we certainly were in the top four in the tournament. Of course, there were 16 teams down at the tournament. No, there were 8. I'm sorry. There were 8 down at the tournament at that time. But Belleville, I think you have the score?
Yes, you beat them. Yeah, you gave them a whooping, 80-61, and not Skeets, but Alvin gave them 37 points.
What game was he asking about, Curly Boo? I couldn't hear him.
Belleville East.
Belleville, that was
quarterfinal
the
game.
first game.
First
Right.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alvin scored 37 points, and you guys beat them 80-61, and Skeets added 13.
But what was Coach saying about we weren't seated in the top four, or we weren't ranked in the top four? What did you hear what he said about that, Curly?
I did, but they didn't seed teams at that time, and
Yeah.
it's just the way that was done, that you kind of know who you're going to play in from the super sectional and the
Right.
and sectionals.
Right.
I
So
see.
I saw that Aurora East comes in, and I think they had a great coach, a legendary coach in Ernie Cavisto, and I think his son was the star of that team.
Yeah.
Funny.
That didn't
Right.
matter. You guys,
Marty held him down.
Yeah.
you guys smacked them.
He was a hot shot shooting guy. He could dribble, and he was kind of flashy. But the way Coach had us play people, if you knew what their strength was, shut it down. I mean,
You guarded him, didn't you, Marty?
You guarded him, Art.
Did I? I thought you guarded him, but
Well, I think we both guarded him.
regardless of who guarded him, Ken's got a great story that I think we ought to segue into Curly Boo about
Please.
Coach Patterson and Coach Cavisto, or was it Ernie Cavisto, right?
Ernie
Ken?
Cavisto. Yes.
Yeah, Ernie.
So tell your story. You told me today, Kenny.
Yeah, this was my senior year. You guys were gone, but we played him again. And of course, Tommy was clearly one of the better players in the state. I think he ended up going to Kansas, if I'm not mistaken.
So he was only a junior when we played him, right?
Yeah. So we played him again in the first round and beat him. And I never will forget, after the game, we were excited because, again, everything we've been talking about, we shouldn't beat these guys. Big Chicago school, all-state guard, 2 years in a row, et cetera, et cetera. So Coach grabbed me because we were invited to go to this press room. Remember this, Coach? And Tom somebody, I think, was doing the interviews. But we're sitting in there.
Tom Kelly.
Yeah, Tom Kelly. Yep. Curly Boo knows it.
We're sitting in there, and they're going to Cavisto Ernie first because they're going to save the winning team, give them the final say. So he's talking about his kid and all this, and I could just see Coach. He was getting pissed. And I knew him well enough that I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, there's going to be a fist fight in this room. And so he goes on and on and on. And finally, they turn to Coach and they go, well, Coach, what do you think of Tom Cavisto? Didn't ask him a thing about his team. They kept on the Cavisto thing.
Wow.
Never even flinched and just said, he was really great against my second team at the end of the game. And I thought, This is why I play the game. This is really fun.
That's why we had a lot of confidence, because you knew
That's
he
why
wasn't
we
going
had
to take any
confidence.
shit, right?
You know, yeah, it makes a difference, you know, when your coach has got your back, and he wasn't
Definitely.
happy about that deal at all.
Love it.
That's a
But,
great
you know,
story, Ken.
Coach Patterson always had, you know, the class aspect in terms of our behavior and our conduct on the court and our conduct everywhere else that we were going to be as we represented Spalding Institute. You know, we're basketball players and everything, but we still had to have the class. And
But
so
he wasn't afraid to go off every once in a while on an official. I can remember the game. I remember the game in East Peoria.
Blackboards too, he
where-
went off on, man.
We lost to East Peoria, what, by 1 point over there, didn't we? Or it was a very close game, I know. And they were the most frustrating team, East Peoria. They had a bunch of guys who set picks in the lane, and you know, it was crazy. But we lost by 1 point, I think, and I don't think Coach was very impressed with the officiating. And after the game, he went off on one of the officials, I remember, and Phil Theobald, who was a great writer, highlighted the whole event in the Journal-Star. I probably still have the article, but yeah, Coach stood up for us. There's no doubt about that.
when you saw the cufflinks flashing and the pinky ring up there, you knew it was going down.
Yeah, you could tell the season was starting. I mean, you know, he would order, you know, 3 or 4 new basketballs for the season and probably about 6 or 8 chalkboards. And when they showed up, you knew it was time to go.
If I remember right, there were a couple of flying garbage cans at halftime also.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about that, but yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, and they weren't those wimpy plastic ones.
If I remember right, Coach had about a size 11 wingtip. And boy, when he hit those garbage cans, they went flying.
Well, I tell you, it was a hell of a lottery of where you got to sit in that locker room to stay out of the way.
Nobody wanted to be in the front row, did they?
And no profanities whatsoever, right?
Well, you know, you got to remember that statement. You knew it was on when he would say, "And you guys are stinking up the place."
Oh,
That used to just put chills all over me. You're stinking up the place.
I remember the first tee you got, Coach, that I was close by. We were down in Centralia in the holiday tournament down there, and it was a close game. I forget who we played in the championship. We lost by, I don't know, it was a real close game. But anyway, the referee, I had the ball in the corner, and I started to move out, and this kid come in and collided with me, and he called me for an offensive foul. And you jumped off the bench, and you looked at the referee. You said, "Yeah, you'll be back here next year, but we won't."
That was an ugly game too, because that's why I said those guys were cheating a lot. I mean, I got stepped on and called for a foul, and the guy was standing on my head.
Yeah, that officiating was really bad down there. It was terrible. Yeah.
That's fun.
well, I got to ask you guys, you're now playing in the biggest game of the state the next day. What was your mindset going into that game against Jim Brewer and Proviso East? But before, okay, I'll stop right there. You guys just jump in and tell me what your mindset was playing this, the biggest game in the state.
I had watched them play on television, and one of the things, I'm doing the math. They could beat people shooting 33%.
Wow.
And I figured, okay, so he's big, you know, we're going to beat these guys. I always felt against Proviso East that we had a chance to beat those guys. And big Jim Brewer, I mean, he was a big guy. And it was probably, for me, the biggest. I hadn't seen people that big and that tall, all on one team. But, you know, you're shooting 33% and you're beating people by 15, 20 points. We got a chance to beat these guys. I was pretty optimistic going into that game. It was a heartbreaker for me losing it, but I can remember, you know, just thinking, you know, they are going to have to beat us. we're not just going to give this game to them. We're going to go out there and they're going to have to earn everything that they get. It was a tough game. And
that was at the time that they played 2 games in one day. You played,
Yeah.
so there wasn't anything that you had to go to sleep on.
We played the early game, didn't we?
Yes.
And then they played the afternoon game, and then they had to come back, and they had a tough game in that afternoon game against, was it
Champaign Central?
Champaign Central, yeah, Clyde Turner, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Curly, I remember my recollection was, and it's true in so many games, but it was really important to see who was going to get out ahead and set the tone for the game. We like to get up and down the court, and we like to score some points and get going. They were the very opposite in my mind. They had a couple of big like trees that played in the Brewer, and there was another guy about the size of Brewer.
Harvey Roberts.
They played a very deliberate, a very slow down, once they got ahead of you, it was difficult to get them going and get into our game. And unfortunately, we ended up, I think I'm going to say, playing more of their game. They got ahead of us in the first quarter. And to me, that was the big difference. If we could have got ahead, I think I'm with Jimmy Moore. I think that we'd have given them a run for their money, if we could have got up and run, but that's not how that's not how it worked. So they were very deliberate. They were very, they played their game very well. They played well defensively, and you better make your shots, because if I remember right, they got all the rebounds, or they got an awful lot of them. And so,
and you were only going to get one shot at it going down on the offensive side, because we were not competitive, I think, rebounding wise, because even if you boxed out Brewer, because I can remember hitting him, I mean, literally bumping him as hard as I could get to make sure he didn't get close to the basket. And they still have people that could out jump us,
He was was he a first round draft choice in the NBA? I think he wasn't he?
Number 2 pick in the NBA draft.
Number 2, yeah. Well, my recollection, you don't want to ever say that you don't think you can win the game going into the game. So honestly, I don't really remember what my mindset was going into the game. I don't think I paid much attention to their earlier games, but I didn't realize how big they were. First thing, that's the first thing I would say. And the second thing is, my sister watched the game. It's on YouTube, I guess. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched it, but frankly, I don't want to watch it. I'd rather forget about it, to be honest with you, and just think about all the good times. And maybe that's kind of a silly way to look at things, but I said to my sister, yeah, we didn't play a good game. I know I didn't play a good game. I remember that I didn't play well, but I said to her, you know what? We won every game we were supposed to win. That was my feeling. And I don't think anybody can honestly say we were favored to win that game. They had to be the favorites to win that game, and they had more horses than we did. That's how I look at it. And I'm doing my mea culpas here, I guess.
Art, I did watch the game on YouTube, and I'll say this: I thought that the second foul on O'Neill in the first minute and a half,
he got 2 right away, didn't he?
I thought that was unfair. And you guys are all ball players, and you know that if you're in foul trouble, it takes away your ability to play the way that you want to play.
And if your horse is in foul trouble, especially,
you have to play timid, basically on offense and defense, afraid of getting the third foul. I thought that handcuffed you guys from the beginning, and you guys got down early and tried to fight back. So, well, I'd be interested.
We blew out our first 2 opponents. I mean, we went down there and beat them bad. And that's how I expected us to perform. I really thought we had that much talent that I didn't care where they were coming from. I thought, and our big man, he was, head and shoulders above everybody else that we played all year long. So that gave us a lot of confidence. And, we had good role players. And like Coach said, Skip was, a diamond in the rough, kind of, that he shot left-handed, and he had a pretty shot, and he had a lot of grit. He wasn't afraid to get in there and mix it up with anybody. And so I would have carried that loss with me for a long time if I had truly felt that we should have won that game. And, you know, I'm being as honest as I can here about it, but that's my take on it.
Yeah, we played them pretty much even after that first quarter.
Yeah,
The first quarter
yeah.
did us in.
Yeah.
We were behind, what, 13-3 at the end of the first quarter, something like that.
28-15 or something, I think, at some point. But yeah.
And that was one of those games where I really saw Barksdale really kind of coming through, because I'm thinking that game he must have hit 35 points, something like that in that game. And, you know, it still wasn't enough, because I think the way in which that game was called, getting those fouls. I mean, I can remember Art looking like he was so tired. I mean, it was a long haul. And I can remember Rick and I chasing after every ball that hit the floor. It was just, it was a very tiring game. We weren't playing our game, you know, offensively for sure. But, you know, it was still one of those things that my nephew sent it. I don't know how he found it, but he sent that game to me a few years back. He was living out in the Marine Corps, Oceanside, California. And he sent that game to me, and he had discovered it. And I'm thinking, what? We're on YouTube, you know? And it was in black and white. And I thought, oh yeah, that would have been correct. You know, they weren't shooting us color games during that time period. But no, it was an interesting game, to say the least.
They were an awesome team. I mean, I learned an interesting fact, Curly Boo. The year before, your alma mater went to state with Ray Taylor. Do you remember that name, Ray Taylor?
Of course, yes.
So he was the big stud for Central. So Central went to state, and none of you guys, I'll bet, remember this. I didn't remember it, but Evanston won the championship that year. They went 30-1. And who's the only team they lost to the entire year? Proviso East.
Yeah.
I mean, so those guys that were, I mean, they may have had some other seniors who were tough, but they were the only team in 68 who knocked off Evanston. So as I said, and, you know, some people may not want to hear this, but, you know, I'm comfortable saying it. I think they were the better team. That's how I see it. So.
And
Ken,
Evanston,
how did you feel
Evanston
about
at 6,000
against Brewer? Ken?
Well, it was the biggest guy I'd ever seen. You know, I can tell you, when I got to Notre Dame, there was no one on that team any bigger than that kid was as a senior.
Wow.
He was huge. And Harvey Roberts.
Yeah.
The combination of those two, that's what I remember, is that they were just so big, hard to move. You know, they could just play volleyball with the ball up on the rim. You know, it's just, it was tough. And then we had a horrific first half and got behind, and we got out of our game for sure. And then it became a half-court physical game, and we were done.
Wow. Coach Patterson.
Especially getting one shot at the basket, because that was rough. I mean, we had good playing, but if you missed the basket, you weren't getting a rebound with those guys. You know, one shot at the basket, and they would get three.
Done. Coach, what is your recollection of that game?
Well, players, I think they recognized what the chances were. Physically, we probably didn't have any business being on the court. By the same token, there's always a chance if they played as hard as they could play. I think the team had a part to do with it, but you already mentioned the fact that the way the first quarter went made it doubly hard for us to play how we normally play. But I think in the final, was the best team won. Certainly we weren't happy with the outcome. Nobody was. Nobody likes to lose. By the same token, if you get deep, playing as well as you can play or as hard as you can play, not necessarily as well as you can play, but I don't think we didn't have anything to be ashamed about.
No.
We went down there to win. We won the game, like Art said, we won the game we should have won, and we lost the game we probably should have won. So That's the way I look at it.
Well, I'm glad you see it that way, Coach, because, you know, some people would say, well, you know, as an athlete, you're never supposed to, you know, have that attitude. But you know what? Sometimes you just, and I know I read the article after the game where they quoted you, and the headline was, you said we got out horsed, and that's how I saw it, you know.
Okay.
We agree.
Well, fellas, you guys are second in the state. Quite an accomplishment. There's only one class. You got the state champion, and then you got the runner-up, and you guys are bringing home a big second place trophy. What did it mean for your family? What did it mean for your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your classmates? What did it mean? What did it mean to the school and the faculty and students? So jump in.
Well, I'll jump in first because you can tell I'm not shy. And I wanted to say a couple things because I don't know if this is my parting shot or not, but I wanted to just say a remembrance to my brother, Steve Jenkins. He was on the team the next year with Kenny, and he was a big contributor to that team. And he didn't make it. He died in an auto accident when he was 18 years old. So I wanted to mention his name. I wanted to mention another Steve Schrader, who was a teammate of ours, and he was a very good friend of mine, a great guy. I mean, you know, he and I may have had a few disputes along the way, but I really got close to that guy, and he died a couple years ago. And, you know, that's pretty young, right? We all hope we hang around a little longer than that. And then the third guy is Alvin O'Neill. I mean, as I've said more than once here, if he hadn't been there, it's like we were all in the right place at the right time, because without him, it wouldn't have been possible to achieve what we achieved. And he passed away recently. And you know, that's sad. I lost touch with him and never talked to him again. But, you know, again, we were in the right place at the right time. It was a special time. We had, as Marty said, he got to Spalding. We had all these good ball players coming together, and everybody didn't even go to Spalding, as Marty talked about. A lot of guys went to Bergen or Central, and you know, Kenny Wolbeck was sitting down there, you know, in the next class, the 6'7", you know, guy who could pop it from anywhere. And it was special. And, you know, it can define your life, really, to have that kind of success, because not many teams do. You know, not many guys get in that position in high school. And that's what it meant to me. And obviously my parents were huge contributors. They sacrificed a lot for us to be able to play. And so it was a huge time in my life. Not the last great time, but it was a really a great time.
That's awesome,
our parish was just ecstatic. I mean, we had Father Tom Hensler, who was a follower of ours for basketball and any sport and all of our academics. He was always supporting of us. And coming back to Peoria, I mean, it was a sad day to lose, but coming back to Peoria, getting on that fire truck, I mean, that's the one thing that stands out in my mind. We didn't get the newspaper at our house, whatever the Sunday newspaper. I didn't know things like box scores or anything like that, because we didn't get the newspaper. And being on that fire truck, holding that trophy, and then seeing all of the support that we had once we arrived back at Spalding Gym. Still the loudest, well, it's not now, but it was the loudest gym that you could ever play in, as far as, you know, people being there to cheer you on. But that was, for me, a moment that said they do appreciate our efforts, because we came back and, I mean, it was just throngs of people, you know, parade type atmosphere. And, you know, having done that, it was a big moment. But then it was back to getting your stuff back on. You know, school was back on. You know, I'm prepping, the tournament's over, I'm prepping for achievement tests. I'm trying to get my appointment to West Point, and it was back on, you know, trying to get in school somewhere. And I think basketball did help. because from what they told me, having played in that state tournament, that's how Northwestern University decided that they actually wanted me to be on their team, to give me a scholarship.
Awesome.
Had I played in that tournament, I probably would have gone to West Point instead of Northwestern. But it was our parishes. The priests, it was just like a big deal. South side of Peoria was in seventh heaven because their sons of basketball had gone to state and put up, the valiant fight.
Right. Awesome. Kenny
I don't know what-
Wolbeck, what did it mean for you and your family?
Well, obviously it was a big achievement, but I think certainly in later years, what it meant as much as anything, and you kind of learn about it as you start to mature more and understand it. But I think it was also representing Central Illinois and Peoria basketball, of just how good it is.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody talked about, the Centralias and the Southern Illinois crowd. They always talked about the big schools in Chicago, but it really started to bring to the forefront with the Centrals and the Manuals and our 2 years in a row, that when people would say, well, you're playing one of those schools from Central Illinois, no one looked the other way. They said, you better take this serious or you're going to get beat. And so I think it meant a lot to the city itself, quite frankly, more than even just our families and our friends at school and all of that. For me personally, past that, it was just the confidence to compete at that level. I think it set the stage for Rich and Dave Scoville, myself, Tommy Kratz, Steve, Jenkins. It set the stage for us to say the next year, we'd like to do this again. This is fun. And so it helped with all the hard work and stuff you had to do to prepare to start the next year and to move forward. And that confidence, I think that all of that generated, it carried through the rest of our life. You just approach life differently when you're a confident person and you're not afraid of getting hit in the mouth because you're going to fall forward and get up and do it again the next day. So that's what it meant to me.
Well, Ken, let me ask you this. Early on, you were telling me that your parents were not well into basketball whatsoever. Did they catch fire? And were they your biggest fans when you were out there at Assembly Hall doing your thing?
Oh, absolutely. Every parent is of their kid. There's no doubt about that. And they became huge basketball fans. But certainly almost after the fact, almost by accident, because they happened to have a kid that got hooked into it. And,
right.
You didn't have a choice.
Oh, it's awesome. Shidley.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
You had to be the big man in Metamora. So
well,
what did it mean for your family, you and your family, to go that far?
Well, my mom or my dad never played any sports, but boy, they got on board. As you know, I played football too, and I sitting here looking at everybody, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, there was 3 all-conference football players on this team that Coach Patterson was so gracious to hold a spot for us because, the season had almost already started and the football season got over, and Marty and myself and Jimmy Moore, he saved spots for us on the team, and we walked right in and got on the basketball team and everything, so for Coach, that was something special for him to do that for us. And I think we contributed and we helped out a lot. But my mom and dad never played any sports. And honestly, I never heard a lot of it in Metamora about, the state basketball tournament and everything and all of our accomplishments. I had some aunts and uncles that were really, really nice to me about it and everything, and really gracious, and said, boy, how lucky you were. And why didn't you go to Metamora? Well, I didn't go to Metamora because my mom and dad were Catholic, and they were telling me from 6th grade on, you're going to Spalding and you're not going to Metamora. So, I didn't have a choice. I ended up at Spalding, and there was no choice in that decision at all. But, as Kenny said, later on, you really realize that when you go through that, you don't realize how special that is and everything. It was fun and glamorous, and we had a great time, and all the great players you played with and you played against and the coaches and everything. But later on in life, you realize how special it really was. Just for, it doesn't happen very often for a group of players, from the first time we walked into that Spalding gym in that diocesan tournament, and you saw all those good players and you come together and, it's almost like Coach Patterson fell into our lap, because he come out of Bradley and come right to Spalding, and, the timing was perfect and everything. And, it was just really something special for everybody.
Or maybe we fell into each other's laps, huh?
Yeah.
That is cool, Shidley. Okay, Marty McGann, what did it mean for you and your family on that tremendous run that you had?
Everything we've talked about, no sense rehashing. The parade was unbelievable, the pep rally, but to make my family proud, to make my mother and father proud, and I still remember the smile on my dad's face, telling people that he had a brother that was played for Spalding and had a great team. He had a son that played for Spalding, and to see those smiles on your family, something you had worked for. And I agree with Ken Wolbeck. I think in some cases you don't really realize until later in life what it really did mean in the long run. But it was fantastic. Like I say, we were, I had classmates that you were like brothers that weren't on the basketball team necessarily, but you were out there busting your butt for them, and to see them smiling and patting you on the back and looking at the trophy or whatever. I know it sounds corny, but at that point, all I could say was, I'm from Spalding, and I couldn't have been any prouder. So that kind of wraps up my basketball days, I guess.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
There's a guy that we kind of forget about, but I've always stayed in touch with him. And I would not want to leave a basketball game and disappoint him. And that was Joe Aiken. And Joe was the guy that was taping my ankles. I mean, from the time that I ever started getting my ankles taped. And so I got to see Joe a lot, but he and Mick Kinney, those guys, you played your best to make sure that they were proud that you gave your best. And I can remember that every game, I got to look them in the face. My parents weren't athletes, as far as high school and all that. And there were a lot of people in the neighborhood that I looked up to. Al Smith from Manual, he was probably the biggest one. But there were a lot of people that were good athletes, and it did them proud to see, we may have lost to them, but we did go down and represent Peoria. And Peoria, I think, benefited greatly from that. And I do think we started off something as far as the Mid-State 9, Mid-State 10, as far as people giving us the respect that we deserve, because we did not have that class system. It's going to be one champion. Agreed. Regardless of the size of your school, and that was a real big accomplishment that was brought back to Peoria. And we're in the Hall of Fame. There's a picture down there.
And deservedly so. So last but not least, Coach Patterson, what did it mean for you? You're a young coach, and you got to the mountaintop, making it to the state championship. So what was it like for you and your family?
Sometimes you don't recognize when it's happening, just how important things are in your lifetime. You're always thinking, well, something's going to happen later on that's going to overshadow that event. But I quite frankly can tell you from my standpoint, I'm 78 years old right now, and I can't think of anything that happened to me after that means more to me than those two teams and these guys that are sitting here right now. Association with them. I've told people all my life, the 6 years that I spent at Peoria Spalding,
Wow.
And guys like this are the reason why. I think if I wouldn't be afraid to go to battle with anybody. Guys like this, they're going to give you everything they've got every time they walk out on the court. And it doesn't make any difference who you're going to battle with. You're going to have a chance. So it's most unfortunate when they decided that Spalding wasn't worth keeping. I'm not sure. I'm sure money had a lot to do with it. What wants to care about, but it wasn't a happy day when they tore Spalding. When they tore Spalding, now I can tell you that from my standpoint. The other thing is a great school, but it's nothing like Peoria Spalding on the line.
Wow. Wow.
I really appreciate your doing this. It gave me a chance to see some guys that I haven't seen for a long time, and I really appreciate that. And I've enjoyed it.
Hey, Coach, the pleasure is mine. The pleasure is mine. I got to give you guys your props, and that's why I wanted to have you on. And then to also the 1969-1970 season, you guys go back to state. You got Big Kenny Wolbeck, leading the brigade, and you guys go back to state. And that is a tremendous accomplishment to lose 5 senior starters and I don't know how many, 6 or 7 seniors, and still go back, knock off the #1 team in the state that's 30-0 in the super sectional at the field house, beating them by 4 points and going back to state. That's quite an accomplishment and a testament to you, because you have a new team, basically. You have a new team.
Yeah, we did. I don't think you want to mention Peoria Spalding when you go through Lincoln.
I would imagine. And you guys beat Aurora East twice and prevented them from getting a trophy.
Who did he say you don't want to mention? I didn't hear what he said.
He did not want to mention the name Spalding.
Oh, Spalding. Before we go, I was just thinking that it would be great if everybody could send Curly Boo their contact information, So, Jimmy recommended what I should do, I guess, is.
Oh, Art, I got you covered, man.
All right.
I'll make sure that you guys won't lose track of each other.
All right.
All you got to do is go through me. As long as I'm breathing, I'll be able to connect you with everybody on here.
Because I had a great conversation.
But I'm not going to let you guys go just yet, because we got some questions for you.
Okay. All right.
Got a few more minutes?
I'm up for it. Heck yes.
Okay.
I'm retired, so what else am I going to do?
We're all retired, aren't we?
All right. Well, here you go. Here's the first question, and it comes from from Judge Stephen Curry, guy I got a lot of respect for. I like this man, and he wanted to know from Coach Patterson, who was the biggest pit bull on the team, and what were the practices like? Who was the pit bull? Who was the person that you had to keep from knocking everybody out?
You got both of them right there. One of them was Rick Shiley, and one of them was Jimmy Moore.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
Hey, we just would dog people. That's all.
You were football players in basketball uniforms. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Jimmy Moore, you don't want to mention his name in Centralia. We had a rule that
I'm not hearing that. Can everybody else hear it?
No. We lost Curly.
Yeah, we lost Curly.
you want to make sure that he doesn't miss the basket.
He's here. I think he's hearing it.
We lost Curly.
This was like my last Zoom meeting last weekend. All of a sudden, the host disappears.
I'm right
I'll
here.
say one thing.
Oh, there
One
he
thing,
is.
guys.
So
good person to know is Judge
we
Ford.
couldn't hear what he was saying, Curly.
Oh, one more. One more time, Coach Patterson.
Can you hear me?
Now we
Yes.
can.
Yes. We can now.
Rick Shiley, we played over at Pekin, and Dawson Hawkins was the coach, and his son had a reputation for just stepping in front of people and trying to draw a charge. So I told, especially Rick Shiley, I said, now the first time that he does that, I want to make sure that he doesn't do that again.
I remember that.
I do too. I remember that.
They not only put him on the floor, he put him on the floor right in the middle of the dragon.
And you know, that caused us not to have hot water. And when we went back to Pekin, they didn't turn the lights on and during the first part of our warm-up.
Oh, that's funny. I don't remember that, but yeah, coach has got it right. If you were going to bring an enforcer in, it would either been Rick or Jimmy. No
Yep.
doubt about it. Right, Marty?
Amen, Art. Amen.
Okay.
Marty and I like to stay above the fray.
As I say, I like to be vertical.
Yeah.
My attitude was real simple. I'm not going to give them the advantage of trying to beat me, because I mean, that was just it. I'm out there to play. I'm going to play as hard as I could. You know, that was just it. I didn't have a whole lot else to offer except for that tenacity. So, you know,
Like we said, everybody played a role, right?
that's it.
Okay, the next one is from Eddie Matthews, Coach Eddie Matthews, the son of Don Matthews. I'm pretty sure many of you know Don
He was
Matthews.
a hell of a ball player at Bergen, wasn't it? Is that the Eddie Matthews that went to Bergen?
He went to Brimfield.
Oh, to Brimfield. Okay.
He played
okay.
at Brimfield and played at Bradley. Well, Eddie wanted to ask, where are the second place trophy and the fourth place trophy? Where are those trophies today?
Hell, we don't even have our gym.
I know. Those trophies have to be somewhere. Does
Do you
anyone
know,
know?
Coach?
No, I don't know.
Well,
If no one knows, then I'm saying this. Attention, everyone. Those damn trophies, the second place and the fourth place trophy,
Need to be found.
to Ron Patterson as soon as possible.
Definitely. Jimmy, you don't have any idea, Jimmy?
no, but there were a lot of things that started to disappear.
Oh,
And
that's a
one
shame.
reason they disappeared was because they tore down the Spalding gym. Now, my guess,
They would have
if
gone
they-
to Bergen, though, wouldn't they?
the championship trophy may be at Peoria Notre Dame,
Yeah, yeah.
and if not, I'm thinking it may be in the diocesan archives in their new building.
Okay.
But I haven't seen those things since they tore the building down.
If anybody knows, please let us know. Okay. Now this one comes from Mark Kleeman. He said that you guys, everybody knows that you were an integrated team and you guys were very close. You were a family. Were there any outside influences that you had to deal with because you were an integrated team?
You
Because
mean
at that
racially
particular
integrated?
time- hang on one second, because at that particular time, there was a lot of protests, a lot of violence going on in 1968 and 1969 with the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, the Vietnam War. You also had the protest in the 1968 Olympics right before you guys went into the 1968-69 season,
Yeah,
you know, with the fist to the sky.
yeah.
So how did you guys deal with being an integrated team at that particular time?
Well, Curly,
You know-
from my standpoint, there was nothing to deal with. The three guys, we had Alvin, Skeet, and Jimmy. Jimmy spent much time at my house, and I never thought twice about it, to be very honest with you. These guys were, they were as close to brothers as anybody else on the team, playing football, basketball, or whatever. So I guess, call it naive or whatever. It never, at least it never entered my mind anything other than another or a teammate.
Well, one of the things that I think minimized for me the pressures being on the South Side was being at Spalding. The Viatorian fathers and brothers, in my estimation, didn't really give a damn what you were wearing when you came through the door, except being in proper uniform, dress, having your hair cut, clean shaven, and getting grades. They weren't going to beg you to come, and they weren't going to beg you to stay. And then you had this legacy. The athleticism at Spalding was the brotherhood, and we had to support each other because no one else liked us. I mean, this is at Catholic school. Wow. And I mean, we'd have people when Madison Avenue would run straight on through. Now they've got that courtyard and everything. We'd be at a bus stop and people would yell at us because we were Catholic, going to a Catholic school, standing on the bus stop, drive their cars past and try to splash water on us, throw food at us. I mean, we were looked upon as the outsiders, and that's where my attitude came in when I got a chance to play one of them. But being at Spalding, they were more concerned about you achieving and being a good person to represent. They call us men. I mean, it's one of the few places during that time period you were a Spalding man, and you were expected to live up to a certain kind of a code, and that's the way they treated you. You earned your respect, and you kept your respect by doing the kind of things that we're achieving. Now, out in the neighborhood, it wasn't always that happy. Peoria was highly segregated. As I told you, we lived in the housing projects off and on, and so you lived in the segregated, what was the colored court. You got called all kinds of names going from the colored court, which you had to pass through the white court to get to MacArthur Highway to go to the grocery store. And so they had all of us hemmed up down there, but being at Spalding, you were isolated. You did not have to deal with the ugly side until you got back to, the neighborhood. And that was something that I think for me helped me to get through the toughest times, simply because I knew that I could be at school every day. I loved being at school. I loved being around the people that I was, exposed to and classmates with, and we had to stick together. I mean, I don't know if you guys even remember, but if we didn't stick together, somebody got jumped. If it was after a football game or something and somebody tried to go to Steak and Shake, you'd always hear about it. And so we stayed together. There was certain places that you'd go and we stayed together with teammates. And that just made it a whole lot better, at least in my estimation, dealing with all of the troubles and the adversity that we faced in my neighborhood. I knew I had Spalding.
Hey, Curly, this is Rick. Hey, can I tell you one story about the first football game we played?
Oh yeah.
We lose Curly. We lost him again.
I had to mute. I hear you.
Okay. Let me tell you a quick story about the first football game we played. We played at Limestone. I was right guard. Jimmy Moore was the halfback, and we ran a play. And Limestone kid tackled Jimmy, and underneath of the huddle, I led the play. Yep. It was a play around the right side. I was a pulling guard, and underneath of the tackle, this Limestone kid made the tackle, and he called Jimmy the N-word, and I heard it, and Jimmy heard it, and I got up and I said to Jimmy, I said, I got his number, and I remember the number, it was 37, and so I don't know when it was, about maybe next quarter or something like that. I looked over on the sidelines, and there stood that number 37, right on. At that time they could stand right on the white line. and it just so happened the play went around to the right, and I was a pulling guard again, and I think Jimmy was carrying the ball. And so instead of turning upfield, I just made a U-turn to the right, and I smacked him out of bounds. So he got his payback, but I almost got kicked out of Spalding because when they saw what happened on the film and stuff, Brother Orban and Father White called my parents into to Spalding. They had a conference with him with my mom and dad, and asked my dad why would he do such a thing like that.
It was a legal block. He was just standing there. We were taught not to stand around. And we were also taught to get to second and third and fourth block if you could.
Yep.
He was just there.
I don't recall any, racial tension at Spalding. That's my recollection of it. I don't think there was any of that. And I don't think we paid much attention. At least I didn't. I didn't pay much attention to the Vietnam War. We were like in a little cocoon, insulated from all of that. And, the politics and the world's problems were not affecting us at all, is how I remember it.
That's awesome. Okay, I have a question from Mark Gannon, and he wanted me to ask the group what they thought of the East Peoria team that was supposed to meet them in the sectional, but that was, I guess they were railroaded by San Jose. So what do you guys think of the East Peoria team?
Well, I already talked about my recollection of that team. They had a lot of great ball players on that team, and their offense was so, what I recall about them more than anything is their offense was unique in what we had faced, because they were always, and Mark Kleeman, you already mentioned him. He has some videos available if any of the players want them. They're like tapes they made of our games, but there's no sound to them. So I guess they were like, I don't know, scouting tapes or something, right? That somebody made. And I looked at part of the East Peoria tape, and it was Mark Gannon, right? Is that who asked the question, Curly Boo? Mark
Yes.
Gannon? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And their offense is exactly what I remembered. Just at the start of the game, I'm playing defense and their guards are running through these picks, and it was the most frustrating thing. I mean, they gave us all we wanted. 2 games. We barely beat them the second game. I think we only beat them by 1 point, didn't we, Marty?
Yeah, I would go along with you, Art, all the way. In my estimation, East Peoria was the toughest team that we played all 4 years. It seemed like freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, it didn't matter. The game was always 1 point or 2 points, one way or the other. And I had a lot of respect for them. I thought they were hands down the best team we played year in and year out. And quite honestly, I know San Jose that year was 30-0, but I was personally quite happy that they beat East Peoria, because I thought
we didn't have to play them. Yeah.
If we play them a third time,
I remember feeling that way too. Now that you say that, yeah.
It's a flip of the coin, who was going to win that third game. So
yeah, definitely. They were tough. No doubt about it. Those guys were tough.
They were tough as far as attacking us where we didn't want to be. And if you can remember playing over there in East Peoria, they went into that stall game and they weren't going to let us have the ball. They did double, triple picks the whole game, and they held on to the ball. I mean, it was like they were that good. They could control the ball that well, where if they were going to win and it was a game that was only 15 points scored, they won't get the 15.
Yeah,
and,
but
they were that good.
Both the games were pretty high scoring, as I remember,
right.
Like in the 70s, weren't they, or something like that?
I think you're right, Art.
Yeah, they were tough. Tell Mark we had a lot of respect for them.
Okay, I'll make sure Mark gets that message. I think he may be watching, but he'll get to see it. The last question I have is for Ken, and this comes from Bob Manning, who is a '83 graduate of Spalding, but he's also a graduate of Notre Dame, just like you are. And he wanted me to ask you, what was the recruiting process like for you? How did you end up at Notre Dame? And at the time that you were recruited by Notre Dame, was Notre Dame an all boys school at that time.
Yes, it was. It went co-ed my junior year. They allowed 50 women in my junior year.
Wow.
So it really was an all guys school for all practical purposes. But no, recruiting was, it was a blessing and it's a pain at the same time of going through it with people constantly after you. And, again, I can't thank Coach enough for the help that he gave me and the guidance he gave me, because he had gone through it. He knew my parents didn't have a clue to what was going on. And I never will forget one thing that he told me that stuck with me is I was trying to filter through and decide what I was going to do. He told me one day, he said, "I'm not going to tell you where to go to school, but I reserve every right to tell you where you're not going to school." And that always stuck with me. And when I got down to my final 5 schools, they were all really good, solid basketball schools. And not many people know there's only a couple teams in the NCAA that's been to more NCAA tournaments than Notre Dame in basketball, because football is so dominant.
Sure.
But the basketball program there is it's solid. It's solid. So my big deal in going was that I just thought that I got it down to Northwestern and Notre Dame, and for both the same reasons, and that was top end education and top end sports. And then when I compared that, I liked the idea at Notre Dame, we got to go coast to coast to play UCLA, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky every year. We got to play the best nationwide because we weren't in a conference.
Right.
And that was a hell of a lot of fun. And I felt that it wouldn't let me down long term. And that's held true. Notre Dame it's a worldwide school. It's not a U.S. regional school.
Sure.
And as I've traveled the world, I can't tell you the number of places I've been around the world where you show up and there are people from Notre Dame there saying, "Whatever you need, here's my card."
Wow.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
Hey, Curly.
Yes, sir.
I have one question for our friend from Notre Dame. Did he play all 4 years there, Kenny?
Who's that?
You played 4 years at Notre Dame,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I just want to bet then, because somebody tried to tell me that you didn't play your freshman year there. So I thank you.
Well, yeah, you got to qualify it. That was back in the day when you couldn't play varsity.
Right.
You only played varsity for 3 years and you had a freshman team.
I do recall that, but someone was trying to tell me that you were only there for 3 years, and I said I don't think so. So
no,
thank you.
No, I was there the whole game time. A lot of good players, though. Boy, I'll tell you what, it was a lot of fun. The guys that we had there, some of the best games we had, quite frankly, was practice.
I can only imagine.
The best talent was at practice, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you got Austin Carr, Adrian Dantley, John Shoemake, Gary Brokaw, Toby Knight,
Wow.
Bill Paterno, all on the court at one time, and you're playing, you learn in a big hurry. You may have been pretty good, or you think you're good.
Yeah.
You're not that good.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, look here, fellas. We're ready to wrap this up, but I want to say thank you to all of you for coming on, and your story is amazing, and you got mad props, big time props from Curly Boo. You guys are my homeboys. Shidley, you're over in Metamora. It's not too far away, but I consider you a homeboy.
Thank you.
He's an adopted son.
Yeah, boys from Peoria, Illinois. Yeah. Much respect. Coach, being from Farmington, you're just right down the road. So you guys are my Central Illinois brethren and my friends in basketball. And I appreciate you coming on. And if you have anything that you would like to say before we go, please say it now. But thank you all.
Well, definitely thank you too, because I communicated this to a lot of people and they were very excited. I mean, we've been going on for quite a while. I don't know if everybody could hang in there for the whole thing. I personally probably would have fallen asleep if I was watching this, but you deserve a lot of thanks for preserving this history. So I just wanted to say that to you.
Yeah.
And
Second
again,
is
thank
here.
you.
Thank you,
And,
Gurley.
Shirley, thanks.
one other thing, and I think this is important for young athletes to remember, and it was always emphasized at Spalding, at least it was to me, athletics was always a means to an end. But when we were being recruited, one of the things that stuck with me, and I'm glad that Coach Patterson said that, he reserves the right to tell you which school you're not going to. They looked at and informed us, at least I felt that way, which schools had the highest graduation rates for athletes, which was really important for me because I wasn't going to get another shot at that. Whatever scholarship that I took as an athlete, I had to make sure that it was going to work and it was going to get done right the first time. And so they had us, I think, pretty well schooled in terms of the kinds of things to do to advance yourself. And I respect that. And young athletes need to really think about that. Those sports that we're having them compete in, it's a means to an end. It's not everything, should not be everything. There should be more of a dimension to you than just that.
It's a great point. Great point.
And so I thank you for preserving that history, because without it, they wouldn't be thinking about the Spalding Irish. We lost Spalding, which was a sad moment, but we lost Spalding. So they don't think about Spalding. They think about Peoria, Notre Dame now, which I think can also become a basketball power. But again, thank you for assisting us in not only coming together, but this opportunity to go global and let people know that the Fighting Irish was just that. We weren't just city champs. We weren't just mid-state 9 champs. We were regional, sectional, super sectional, and we did get to state, and we were in the final dance. So I thank you.
My pleasure.
Shirley,
My
thank
pleasure,
you very
Jimmy.
much. Thank you, Shirley, for everything.
You're most welcome. Fellas, please be well, and I hope to see all of you soon. Okay?
Great. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody.
Well, everybody, that's a wrap. That's the 1969-1970 Spalding Irish. Not Class A, not Class AA, not Class 3A, not Class 4A. Runner-up, state champions. Only one team can win the championship. They came a little bit short, took second place. Next year they came back and took fourth after losing 7-8 players. Much props to them. These are legends. So when I say that youngsters need to do their homework, this is another lesson for you. Spalding Irish, 1969-1970. You guys take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you real soon. God bless you, and please be well. Peace, y'all.
Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Shirley. Yeah.
Thanks, Curly.
All right.
See you, buddy.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.